Good morning from Juneau, Crystal Saloon, Taylor Vidic.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks you for being here.
Thanks for the
with
coffee.
us. Yeah, it's great. Tea, coffee. We are so lucky to talk with you because I don't know where to start really. Maybe we could start with why we're here at the Crystal Saloon. This is your working part here.
Yeah, I don't want to call it my baby. That seems aggressive, but as people around me start to have children, this is what I do instead. I am the stage and marketing manager here at the Crystal Saloon in Juneau. We opened up last March. It's been great.
I was here 2 nights ago for a concert, beautiful concert. You put on a lot of concerts here, don't you?
Yeah, I mean as many as we can muster in this town of 32,000, and I'm finding creative ways to bring people in from out of town and partnering with other organizations.
And
there are no roads.
And local people, obviously. There's a lot of musicians in this
lots
town.
of locals.
Has everybody played here yet?
Not everybody, but a good chunk of them. We're slowly working them all in, you know.
So you said, so it's been going on. Was this a product of COVID, like everything else we've been talking about lately?
A little bit, yeah. So this room used to be a bar called the Viking.
Okay.
Jared Curie bought the building, and right after the paperwork went through, COVID hit. So he knew that eventually he wanted to renovate the space. And I'm not sure when he had the genesis of the idea to create a music venue. I think that's something he's been wanting to do for a while because he grew up in Juneau. He's in his late 30s. So he can see the spaces that need to be filled in Juneau. So when COVID hit, he was like, well, if the doors are going to be shuttered, might as well do the renovations now. Good chunk of change later, we've got this beautiful venue.
That's what everyone did. We did some kind of renovation on ourselves or on our venues, on our houses, on our lawnmowers. And it became a venue. You said it became a music venue. I'm looking around. It's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
And I have a question in my mind. Have you thought about this? When is a place a bar with music, and when is a place a music venue?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
And
I thought it was quite a good question
fabulous.
myself.
It's not even written down.
Yeah.
That's something that I've been working through a lot with this space because what I envision is a venue that has a bar in it. But because this space was a bar previously, I think many people think that is a bar with entertainment. But with time and through example, I'm trying to work to slowly shift people's perspectives about what the space can and should be. So the way that this room is built is brilliant because every single person has a view of the stage.
Yeah, you have to. I don't know how much we can see watching us now, but it's a very kind of longitudinal room, the whole width of the room, and it's narrow, so you're kind of at the bar, but you're right up against the stage even when you're back at the bar.
Yeah.
And there is another bar back there, which we don't, with other roomage and everything, but it seems like this is the main thing, this is where you put on the music. Yeah.
Though we did host an opera back there. We'll do dance nights back there.
Of course you did.
I know, right? So my goal is to kind of treat that as a black box of sorts. So to have different funky events. We've had poetry nights back there. Hosted a wedding reception.
Literally a multi-purpose bar venue, music venue.
Yeah.
It's amazing, in downtown Juneau. Okay, so back to when is it a bar, when is it a music venue? Do people come just to drink when there's nothing on the stage, or do they sort of really come when there's music, for example?
They mostly come for the entertainment. Yeah. Working to figure out how to get people in here when there isn't entertainment, just because you can only do so much. But on a standard week, we'll have 4 nights of entertainment on stage.
That's amazing. And when you book, because you're a musician yourself, I want to talk more about that soon, and other things you've done before this. You said you book people from outside, and you obviously book local talent. And can you just talk a little bit about how you go about doing that?
Yeah, there's a mix. I am doing my best to tell artists in town, hey, if you have something that you've been wanting to do, be it a special one-off, or if your band wants to perform, find me, hit me up, which is a blessing and a curse because I like being accessible, and also like I can't go out without talking about the Crystal Saloon at this point. I'm starting to have a bit of a identity crisis on that front.
Do people call you Crystal?
Thank goodness, absolutely not. Nope. But maybe by next year we'll see what happens.
Hey, Crystal.
So that's a piece of it. Being 9 months in, I still have enough folks that I have been excited to bring to Juneau. Prior to having such a tight connection to a venue, I like
the
producing
potential was
things,
there.
and
You already had kind of in the back of mind, all these people.
Yeah,
So they're
I've got this
still, the big
backlog.
bang of talent is still kind of exploding.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
And I'm excited now. So now we've kind of figured out our audience base, what we can get away with, how frequently we can have a ticketed show, etc. Educating audiences that paying for art is necessary, especially since we're not a nonprofit. So any money that is coming in to pay for art needs to come from ticket sales.
I think you've done really well based on the one night I saw. It was impossible to get tickets online.
That one night we nailed it.
Before. People were really already getting educated. Yeah.
And that's because we were able to partner with a nonprofit. So that was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that was really helpful.
More about that. That makes me want to ask other questions. But yeah, so about the booking the talent.
Yes. So that's one way. And then also curating shows. So we did a Babe Fest here, and it was 4 nights of entertainment. We did a staging of the Vagina Monologues with 12 just badass babes. And it was awesome to do a theatrical production.
Yeah.
And then we did a night of...
So just say that my favorite is the machine gun one. That's all I'm going to say. Carry on.
Well, yep. You've got great taste, Ingvild.
Thank
Who'd
you
have
very
thought?
much.
We did a night with 5 singer-songwriters, and it was mostly local folks, but I was able to bring Ashley Young down for that, which I was stoked about. And I learned about her because someone named Liz Snyder, who plays in Whiskey Class, just, I feel like over a year ago, was like, hey, at some point, you got to bring Ashley Young to town.
Yeah.
So it was cool to take funding from the ticket sales for that whole weekend and throw a little extra to make that possible, right? So what's the word for that? Just spreading the money around.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think that's good, spreading the money around, diversification, something. Yeah, multi-purpose. You know, you're doing several things at once, and being smart may be a good word for it.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
That's for sure. We did a Joni Mitchell night as well.
Yeah.
So creating things like that.
Yeah, I noticed there's like a Jimi Hendrix tribute coming up in a few days, and so there's a lot of that kind of themed stuff that people are attracted to.
Yeah. People like a theme.
That gives me another question, which I think is also a good question. Does the venue, I think I know the answer to it, the venue creates an opportunity for people to focus their ideas onto something. I have done that with a festival that I run, and you can see that people's minds that are ticking, what can I do there? They come here, they want to be on stage, they're a musician, hopefully, or a performer, and then they go home and go, oh, there was this half-baked idea about this tribute thing, or I have a talent for this, maybe, so that you're not just showing stuff that you already know and booking things but I think you're also very likely stimulating creation of new art and creation of new concepts and shows and music.
I hope so.
And people were listening. I came through the door in full conversation myself, and I was like, oh,
I shushed you. I was at the door.
I love that. I'm being shushed a lot of times, but this was extremely appropriate because it was a very intimate show going on stage. And I don't know how many people are in here, but 120 people being quiet and listening.
And
obvious.
9:30 p.m. on a Saturday.
And there's liquor behind the bar.
Yeah.
Typically, liquor means you can't have a listening room in this state, in my experience.
Absolutely.
That's not your experience.
And it helps when you've got like a Cat Moore on stage taking care of business, right? But
yeah, you have to pay attention. That's true.
But the space kind of calls for it. And I'm learning how to set the tone in a room, right? So if someone gets all fancy and they go on stage and they like welcome the room and they're like, welcome to the show. This is a show. Pay attention.
Yeah.
The power of suggestion, even when people don't know that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, you don't have big posters saying "shut up."
Yeah,
you don't need that. You can just kind of.
Yeah.
But because we tried that at what used to be the Taproot,
Rest in peace.
which sells liquor. Yes. Yeah. At some point, the posters went up for dedicated listening room nights, like shh, 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 this is a listening room, and people could read, and they
would do it.
They did shut up.
Yeah, I'm thankful the bartenders get on board too, because the bartenders in a room hold so much energy, and so we've figured out on the nights when they are also helping set the tone, which has been great.
Totally, absolutely. So it's a wonderful place, wonderful venture, and you've really only been involved in this for a bit more than a year.
A bit less.
Bit less than a year.
I mean, that's as long as, it's been
maybe
open.
it's sort of been in conversation, but So before that, Can we go back a little bit, talk about other things you've done?
Yeah. I worked seasonally in Skagway from when I was 21 until
But
the
you're from
pandemic.
here.
But I'm
You're
from
Juneau
Juneau.
gal, moved south a little bit.
North a little bit.
Oh, north. Where
full
am I?
90 miles.
I apologize.
You're
I'm
from
a
Anchorage.
Norwegian.
I get it,
No,
yeah.
I'm from Oslo. Do you know where Norway
Yes.
is? Yeah, exactly. I know nothing about the Panhandle. I've never been to Skagway. I want to
So
go.
I don't know if you know, this is Alaska.
Oh, it is. This is Norway. Do you know that?
Really?
Yeah, Oslo is right there.
I didn't know that.
Norway is this, and this is Alaska. I know. It's very
Maybe I'll start tossing this in instead of like, here's Alaska. I'll just start talking about Norway sometime.
This, exactly. Yes. No. So,
Uh-huh.
where's Skagway, and
Yes.
what were you doing there?
Skagway is 90 miles north of Juneau, which, but
There's
it feels
no
like
roads for
there's
those people who
no,
don't know.
There's no roads.
You have to swim there, right?
Yeah.
Or take
Well,
a
so
boat.
Skagway has roads into Canada. You could drive from Skagway to the southern tip of
That's
South
actually
America.
this is the place there's no roads.
Yeah, no roads from Juneau.
I'm getting
So
it. I've lived there
whenever
20 years and I know
it's
things.
okay, you're from Norway, so we'll give you a break. You you can't drive out of Juneau.
No.
So anytime I would see someone from Juneau in Skagway, it was this mixing of worlds, and I was like, "You're not supposed to be here. This is my new territory.
Yeah.
Like you are out of place." I was giving tours at the Red Onion Saloon,
Yep.
which was a saloon and brothel in 1898. It's now a saloon and brothel museum. So
And that's still in operation. It's
still in
been
operation.
Continual since 1898.
since 1890, not continual. Jan Rentmore purchased the building 42 years ago. At this point, she is still
That's about a
large and in
century in
charge.
Alaskan terms.
Yeah,
at
she
least
looks great
Alaskan
for a
non-
century. But
Yeah.
absolutely. So my role was head madam there. So I gave tours in full costume with a fake name, and I got to
For
work
thousands of cruise tourists
for
who
a
were
lot
curious
of cruise
about
tourists. Yeah, which was
past.
awesome because there aren't many things you get to do with strangers for 2 hours where the topic and the subject matter is such that you start with a lot of jokes and a lot of fanfare, but you also get to talk about the real components of sex work and how hard it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the reality of it.
Yeah.
And so these people are just getting off a cruise ship thinking that they're going to take this like fun, flouncy tour. And you're like, no, can I say syphilis?
Yes,
Then
can
you talk about syphilis.
You can say it. You can even spell it if you like, but you don't have to.
Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah, you talk about syphilis to the tourists.
Yeah, exactly. And so not just that, but like you just get to get so real with people
Yeah.
in just a 2-hour span.
Yeah.
So I got to connect with a lot of people,
Awesome.
and that was really awesome. And then I also got to work in a building with just a bunch of really cool, powerful women who believed in me and supported me. So much of my production experience came out of working in that building because once the tourists leave, there's a lot of young people that want to have a good time. So I got to have a space to utilize to start producing shows and dreaming on that front.
Right. Okay. And then so you brought that idea here?
A
Later?
little bit.
A little bit.
You know,
'Cause I
I'll
never
acknowledge
saw you
that.
stream from Skagway, but I've seen a couple of things from Juneau.
Yeah. So landed back here at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
My parents are still here. No cruise ships came to Southeast in 2020, so we were all kind of just
quiet
waiting.
on the horizon.
Absolutely. And then Juneau had a COVID grant, an artworks grant, and I applied for that and had the idea to co-produce with one of my favorite collaborators and also conveniently my roommate, Kelsey Riker. We created a virtual variety show called From Juneau with Love.
Yeah.
And that was a really fun way to get plugged back into this art scene very quickly, especially when everyone was at home. So we reached out to 20 local Juneau performers and gave them all a chunk of change and said, give us a 4-minute video doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
And the results were incredible. And we streamed it live, and Joshua Midget sat behind a computer. What's the program called? Doesn't matter. But we went back and forth between these pre-recorded videos, and Kelsey and I sat in our living room and live hosted the event. And it was so silly and so fun, and I got to meet a lot of cool people. And the Jack administered that grant. And Kachung Stephen Blanchette of Bamiwa he was one of the featured artists, and he also worked at the Jack at the time.
Yeah.
So that's how we were acquainted. I had never met him before, but now we get to work together quite a bit through other projects. So that was kind of my reintroduction into the Juneau art scene.
It's really cool. And I think it's happened several places, many places, with the COVID situation being one that you have to kind of downscale part of the presentation, but you can really put the talent and the ideas to the forefront and the story behind them. Because let's face it, when you're talking to cameras or using cameras, is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And you actually, I think the impetus is more to show the ideas behind the show than when you're on live on stage, right? Because the audiences are glued in to their screen, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And their minds are more free to run than when they're in a real room. And so there's a different kind of story you're telling when you're performing to a camera, right?
Yeah. And I think we hit that sweet spot where people still had the energy for online entertainment.
Yeah.
And now, people are like, no, we want to be back in the room.
Absolutely, yeah. But they still have the ability now.
Yes.
Or they have the understanding that it exists. And
Yeah.
we just did a music summit with 4 hours, and people were actually sitting through 4 hours. I didn't expect that we would have people doing
I was impressed that I sat through and the numbers didn't change on the live stream I was watching.
Yeah.
It stayed up there the
Stayed
whole
up
time.
there. They had good numbers. That's good. And then you've kind of then built that community or consolidated the community through COVID, right? With from Juneau with Love. And you've realized that you can reach audiences outside.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in Juneau and I saw it. And you can reach a global audience, right?
Yeah.
We are reaching a global audience right now.
I'm not supposed to look at the cameras, Angel.
No, I wasn't. Just addressing the global audience.
Oh, gotcha. The global
The global
audience.
audience. Yeah. So then going back or forth, a little bit about you. So far, you've talked about you as a presenter, producer, what other things, but not actually musician, because you're a musician. You sing, you play, you write songs.
I
all of
try,
that?
yes.
You do that. Recordings. What are your? Do you get time in the middle of all of this to be you?
Now that it's 2023,
Right.
I'm going to reset my schedule, like so many of us are, and figure out how to spend more time in my music. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I play guitar, grew up playing the piano. I did not practice frequently, and I will never forget my parents
like other people.
Yeah, for not making me do that more. Sang in a lot of choirs and took up songwriting. And I am so excited that this year I'm going to record my first album because I was awarded a Rasmussen grant in 2022, which is, it's not very often as an independent artist that you get like a stamp of approval or a milestone marker. So when I saw the missed call on my phone, I was like, I think I'm about to call back and they're going to tell me something really cool and it's going to make me feel things. And it did, which was awesome. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm doing okay.
Great.
I just got to do it.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that. In Southeast, at least, it is possible to fill a room without having any recordings or any online presence, really, because we all know each other, right? So that has allowed me, I don't want to say to be lazy, but maybe, or just to get excited about being in front of an audience because that's what I love doing.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had to focus on the recording component to still have mild Southeast Alaska success, right? But I would like to go beyond Southeast Alaska.
Yeah, which you could or could not. But so where is that? Where is beyond?
Where is beyond? I mean, I'd like to just get up to frickin' Anchorage, you know?
First stop.
First stop, Anchorage. I spent a semester in Fairbanks, so, I got a little hit of that.
Second stop.
Yep.
Nome.
Yep. We're only going north. No, it would be so fun to get to travel a bit and do so on the back of music and having a physical representation of your art is so important, I think, if you're going to hit the road and actually try to go somewhere.
Yeah, and it's something that we still dream about. And I say still, and since I grew up, my personal dream was to have an LP, to play with a band in a room, and then somebody from, A&R was going to, somebody from a record company was going to discover me and my band or whatever. And then from there on, the rest would be history. And we've found that we have to do everything ourselves to the point that what typically I think suffers, or we feel is suffering, is the time to just be creative
Yeah.
and live in your head and on your instrument and make music, create music, and kind of change your own world. Maybe change the world outside you, but really just kind of get express all of the ambitions, or that's not the right word, the hopes and aspirations, and talk about the world from your standpoint as a songwriter or as a musician.
Yeah.
I think, if I just say, I want to hear what you feel about this, because I think a big, as an organizer myself, one of the biggest drivers behind this was I was kind of asking for something when I'm giving to people. I'm kind of hoping that somebody would give that to me. You know, it's like a way of saying, oh yeah, can you sort of scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, kind of thing. This is what I like. Can you do this to me? And I'm saying scratch back. There could be other circumstances, but do you feel that you're asking for, or are you kind of showing? I think I'm showing people what I would like to happen in my life when I do something for my fellow musicians.
Yeah.
Create a festival, put up, start a venue, build an organization, help people get out to perform, go on tour, festivals, all these things. It would be great. It's because I want it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a way of creating that in the outside world. So it's not just purely selfish, but it's definitely not what I want.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we're all trying to create the world we want to live in, even
so
in
you want
this
to
component.
perform here?
Yeah.
Are you?
Absolutely. I
Are
mean,
you performing here?
I know someone who books the stage, so it's pretty
So
easy
you
to
could
get up if I
actually, it
want.
wouldn't be a conflict of interest. I love that term.
It is. There
I
has
think
been
that's
times
so
where I'm like,
funny.
I gotta stop. So I like to perform across many a genre.
Yeah.
I like to play with a lot of people, and there have been moments where I'm like, okay, cool, you're not allowed to get on stage this month.
Would they even fit on this stage, all the people that you like to perform with?
I co-produce a burlesque and variety troupe called the Nude and Rude Review, which features like an 8-piece band.
Oh, they will fit on there.
They totally did. We did a show with 22 performers on this stage, and it's not a big stage. And there was a moment where we were all on stage. It was pretty tight.
Yeah.
But it worked, you know. I think about this, how my production life kind of mirrors my personal life. Like, I want to go to dinner parties where people think about plating, but not many people are like throwing dinner parties and like putting out fancy plates.
Because it's a work of art the way they present the food.
I just think it tastes better that way. And so rather than waiting for someone to invite me to something like that, I'm just going to host the dang dinner party. And there are moments where you feel and notice that your output is possibly more than what you are receiving. And that can be, it sometimes takes a moment to wrestle with what that might mean. Like, does that mean that nobody likes me? No one's inviting me to their fancy dinner parties? Like, no, probably not. I don't know, maybe. I hope not. Anyways, I'll unpack that later.
My silence is just, I don't know what to say to that, but I'm sure that's not the case.
Thanks, Ingvild. But I want to see the kinds of things that are happening at this venue in particular, or the projects that I'm working on, and I'm happy to do them. And I do hope that it comes back to me in other ways. And it has, which is really great. One of the gals who performed this weekend, I met down in the Orcas Islands this summer because a mutual artist friend invited us down and compensated us to do so, and just gave us this magical weekend out at this resort. Feels like too strong of a word, but there are cabins and it's on the ocean, and so we're all kind of passing the torch around to take care of each other.
No, and you're the madame for this place, and right, and
got a thing for saloons, so
and Madame Crystal, and it's wonderful. I really like it, and I just kind of hope that this will go and grow, and we'll come here and play it. I want to play here, so just
can't
it's
wait.
official. But a little bit about what it takes to do this. We've kind of talked about it, but I'd like to get a little bit more into the business aspect of things. You have a business degree, right? You're a right person to do this. You think it through. You have to do. Do you have to do a business plan? Do you have to actually write up everything and then kind of go through the steps, or how?
I should do that.
Oh, I don't know. Should you?
No, I think I should. I'm excited to start doing more of that. It's kind of been...
Because you learned it in school, but then maybe you just do it.
Yeah, well, and this is so fast-paced, right? Because you have a new event every single week, and so you can't... I'm envious of the organizations that have like 2 shows a year, because they can put all their energy into building this beautiful marketing plan and make it all super cohesive and thoughtful. And I'm just like trying to get the word out in any way that I can, try to find the right people.
And they look at you and going, how does she do it?
And I'm like, I'm
They
exhausted.
think you have a cohesive business plan for each one, and they just don't understand how that's humanly possible.
Yeah.
Because it isn't.
And I'm coming up with systems, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would love,
Yeah.
now that I'm understanding what the audiences want, I started to say this earlier and got distracted, but
No, yeah.
what the
Let's
audiences
get back to
want,
it.
what kind of funding we can acquire.
Yeah.
I want to, and I've gotten to see more of the nonprofit arts world through my work with the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council.
Yes.
I got to go to the
You
Western
partner
Arts
with them.
Alliance and learning how larger arts organizations do what they do. It's a whole stinking ecosystem. It's fascinating. And so to take that massive sector and apply it to a 110-seat room, right? With very different content. And anyways, like clearly there were 2 very different things, but watching what happens in that world and trying to apply it to this world.
Yeah. It strikes me it seems to me that would make it super potent, because you have something that works for a large world, and then you're applying it to a smaller world, and it would just kind of pack in and be super powerful.
Yeah, and they're booking stuff like 2 years out, right? I don't think that's realistic, but if I could even get to 6 months out, or know that...
At least a skeleton?
Yeah, or throughout the year, here's going to be the hallmark events. Here's how many people I can afford to bring in from out of town. So let me pre-plan that and start those conversations with agents and managers, which is something I'm very new to.
Yeah.
Like I'm out here kind of faking it till I make it, and thankfully having some...
And I think, that's what most people do. And then one thing that's needed to be able to think far ahead is funding, right? Or at least an outlook to funding.
Yeah.
And I mean funding, not just ticket. You can't just do, play for the door is unsustainable.
Yeah.
And it's not paying for operation. You might just be able to pay some kind of cost, but operation funding is really, that's all nonprofits, all organizations are having problems with it day to day, because people are excited about the show, the project, and all of that.
Yeah, and learning that at nonprofits, such a small, like less than 50% of it is carried by ticket sales in these performing arts centers. And that's generous.
Yeah.
And because we are not a nonprofit, we don't have access to grants. And learning from my recent experience with grants, like grants make the art world go round.
Absolutely.
They are powerful.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning that we can be partnering with outside organizations and nonprofits.
Yeah.
So we've had Juneau Jazz and Classics in here. We've got a show this weekend with a local theater company. Perseverance Theater has done things that don't fit quite well in their actual theater space on Douglas. So we've been able to put them on stage in here, which has worked really great.
Yeah.
And feels powerful and important. That's one nice thing about COVID, is that I think everyone learned how to communicate a bit more.
Yeah.
And so the arts organizations in Juneau, and honestly, I feel far more connected to anything that's happening in Anchorage as of the last couple of years. We're all figuring out how to talk to each other and work together. And it's, I think, going to make things so much easier and more potent, which is so exciting.
And you mentioning the nonprofit partnership, and I think also the nonprofits, whether they are a presenting organization like the Juneau Arts and Classics, or a Jazz and Classics, or the Arts Council, or the Arts and Humanities Council, nonprofits need for-profit presenters like yourselves and this venue, also to stay alive and to stay current, I think, in their programming, especially in smaller places. It's just sort of obvious that these different pillars of different sizes, they kind of need to support the same structure.
Yeah.
So that sounds really wonderful. The music style, I wanted to talk a little bit about, because it's just by association. One of the things that we talked a lot about with Akimi is that indie music, bar music that's been, and with bar music, I mean music that has so far been relegated to be performing in bars because of the ecosystem, because of the types of audience, the audience, the perception of the audiences that are supporting that music. And it's been the most flexible, and people are very low economy. And you mentioned already the impossibility of planning ahead. It's the culture of throwing your guitar in the back of your car and driving and touring. And here it's not even possible. So here it's more like, can we do it? But we're talking about this music being an art form and a part of the big art form that is music. So it needs to be supported also, with policies, with funding and all these different things. But then I think a perception has been a lot, and it might even be in terms of giving grants to individual musicians, that this is commercial music. Because it sounds like the music that we know people are making millions from, or up until streaming, people were making millions from.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think that the music that we're used to thinking of as bands, as popular music, has kind of suffered from its own success in a way. People are thinking
not
of
that
it.
high
It takes
art.
care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't need support.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not appreciated, because people love singing and they have the emotional aha all the time when they're listening to songs and singing them. But the habit has been to support the so-called high art. And so could you see that there's need for some kind of change in how people see the art, or do you think we already are there and it's just about figuring out a business model that works?
Yeah, I haven't thought of it quite like this.
No, and I'm formulating it in a very, very long-winded way.
You would never.
But are you following me?
Yeah.
Like, is it making sense?
Except I'm flipping it in my head right now. I am thinking about how we have had, I think the strangest bar music we have had in this venue. We did an event called Beer, Brats, and Brandenburgs, and we had 12 classically trained string players on our stage. Not just strings. There was a trumpet, a clarinetist. It was a light collaboration with the Juneau Symphony, or at least with their artistic director.
Yeah.
And so people came in and they were drinking beers, eating brats, and listening to
Bach?
To Bach.
Fantastic.
It was so cool.
Oh my God, I had no idea this is exciting. So I get excited about things like that.
It totally worked.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we're inviting all of these different genres and types of music onto the same stage, and therefore people start to associate, a 12-piece orchestra with their local singer-songwriter, or with open mic night or jazz jam nights. If literally putting everyone on the same stage, on the same platform, might subconsciously start to show people like this all counts. This is all valid.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
That's just, totally.
Yeah.
So you're already doing that.
Yeah, I guess. Look at us go. And it's nice because you get, when you put the more standard high art things on a stage, it is easier to sell tickets to people who have the means. Even just like generationally speaking, right?
Oh, totally.
And I know that is something that many like symphonies or jazz programs have issues with. They're like, how do we pull in a younger audience? And so when you take that art, this is kind of the exact opposite of what you're talking about, but same.
Yeah.
And
It's
put
just
it in a place where
going in there.
where millennials feel comfortable and where it feels accessible. That's
Totally.
fun.
Yeah, that is super fun.
It's changing the perception.
Absolutely. And I do really think that people learn by seeing, or believe. Seeing is believing, or hearing in this case.
Yeah.
Hearing and seeing is believing, and all you need to do is do it. And then audience get an expectation that it's going to be kind of varied. And, and it's just introducing. I don't think that our audiences are resistant to anything. I think people are very open-minded.
No.
You just have to have the idea and
Have the
do
idea
it.
and build the space. I'm a big fan of lamps. I'm a lamp gal. These lights these lights that are hanging on our proscenium arch here.
Oh yeah,
they're Costco bulbs.
I was going to say they look like what's on my balcony, but I didn't want to
outdoor.
Be that, whatever.
And I know how important lighting can be. So prior to having this space to utilize so much, like anywhere I go, I bring a string of these lights with me from Costco. It's like $45. Our burlesque tour traveled with a chunk of them, and we would find ways to put them on whatever stages we were performing.
Because that's a unifying element.
A unifying
kind of thing.
elephant. Nope.
I love that though. Unifying. That's a unifying element.
I was at the radio. This is a full tangent. I was at the radio station last night in the Jeff Brown studio. And in the description about Jeff Brown, who is a really big deal in Juneau radio, this studio is dedicated to him. It says in writing that he once rode an elephant down Franklin Street.
Yeah.
I'm like, when did Juneau, Alaska have an elephant? Anyways, I'm going to Google this.
Yeah.
To be continued.
Yeah.
But anyway, so.
No, Google it.
But
Because I would just also say that I have a story about a boy who went with his parents and they said, we're going to go and see Ella Fitzgerald. And he came home in tears because Elephant Gerald wasn't there.
Oh, and he only
Poor
got
Ella.
Ella Fitzgerald.
That's all he saw.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
he was so disappointed.
Wow, that's brilliant.
But we may keep this in because it's good.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But why I brought up the lighting is because
Yeah.
I think it's about creating a space. It's about creating a space, be it with the ambiance, with the talent on stage, with how you welcome a room, with the person that you put at the door so that anyone who walks in is greeted with a certain energy so they know, oh, I am now walking into a community space or a sexy space or, it's just fun.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like everyone spends all day, every day working and doing things they don't enjoy doing. And so this is the time and space that we all get to actually exist and live together and make memories.
Yeah, well, this is why, again, comes back to our function. And it's also kind of our downfall, I think, as entertainers or music creators, art creators, is that we are what people think of as the fun part. So when we come to them, if they are the money people, if they are our bank manager or our, whatever they are, philanthropists, whatever, they think of us as, oh, yeah, I love the show, I love that. But please don't talk to me about the back stuff, what it takes to go into it, because we don't really want to talk about that. It ruins it. It's a bit like when I came out of theater training, I could never go and see a play anymore and be sucked in because I was looking at the lights
too
and
much.
going like, I knew
the veil
too
had
much.
been lifted.
Yeah, so they actually don't really want to know. I think they forget.
Yeah.
Because there's a mental block, it's psychologically of individual human beings on boards and on in government and whatever. That art is there for me. It's like please don't tell me how it works because I need one free space in my brain.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I'll support the project and I'll give you like a lump sum of money or something, because if you tell me I trust you, then it will make it go around. But I don't want to get too much into it. It's one attitude. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but and I think that has changed quite a bit. But it definitely felt like that in the past, that we'd just stay light and fluffy and do what you do.
Play your trumpet and
And please don't talk about operation funds or executive director or anything like that. That's but and that's totally black and white, totally generalization. But I think it's there much more than for other industries. So obviously, back to the business side of things, music is an industry. It's an economy. It's an ecosystem. It's a sector, and without us, there's not just not any fun. There's also a lot of
the trickle down is huge. One of the most potent components of the topics this weekend was thinking about, like you said, the economy of music and of entertainment. Especially, I don't know, when Marion Call talks about spreadsheets, I get all flustered and excited.
No, she's good at that.
She's great at that. She's
good
one
at
of the
many
smartest
things.
people that I know.
Yes, absolutely.
But trying to educate stakeholders in our state about the financial impact that music can have on our economy, because that is the language that so many people speak, and because we live in a world of capitalism, or in a country and state of capitalism. No, I'd say a world of capitalism.
I think world. By now, it's a world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what grabs people.
Yeah.
When you say, no, but this is good for money. And also, artists need money too. Like I would love to own a home one day,
I hope you do soon.
Thanks. Yeah. Not holding my breath, but it could be great.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
And so, in terms of let's keep it to Alaska, because we that's kind of our sphere that we operate in. What do you think that in addition to a beautiful room and a venue and things like that, is there, if you're looking at it from kind of outside, from the sort of, music summit perspective, a bigger perspective, economy perspective, or ecology, is there something that is important now that we need? What do you think? What was one thing you would wish for the music sector in Alaska to have that isn't quite there yet? Or it could be one thing, could be anything.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is coming from a bit of a selfish space.
Go for it.
I am envious of the artists in Anchorage and around that space. Basically, anyone on the road system in Alaska having access to one another. I, as someone who play music, I've had very little exposure to people who are actively doing the thing.
Right.
Like, there are plenty of people playing live music in Juneau, but when it comes to recording and to being, like, going out on the road and touring, or just all of the things past getting on a stage and playing good music, I haven't gotten to see much of that.
And people take it for granted that we talk about, we, meaning I will say Akimi, we've been to a number of festivals, a number of conferences, and met with, folks doing the same kind of organizational work in other states, and it doesn't even occur to them, the isolation.
Yeah.
And I come from Norway, which is also isolated from continental Europe. So I'm very familiar with the sense of, great, we're isolated, we don't have to be like them, and we can't be that connected. And also there's a local pride, and combining that should be there, that's fueling individual and local style music or music scene, and then kind of figuring out how to balance that with bringing, giving opportunities to mix. And one thing is as an activity that you would do, like a youth camp or something, and the other thing is the economic activity that you're giving artists a chance. And so that's a really important part, isn't it? And just to give exposure, professional development sounds like even you need to get a perspective of what it is. And then I think you'll notice really quickly that Seattle is really close, and the Lower 48 is much closer and maybe just as attractive to perform in. So I want to ask about that, because I don't know, fact-finding portion of this segment. Juneau artists, do they travel a lot more south than they do north and hop on a plane, go to Seattle?
I don't know too many Juneau artists that are actively playing outside of Juneau. Yeah. Also, though, I haven't been back full time. I wasn't here pre-pandemic and paying as much attention to this scene. So I will be curious now that the world is opening up. I'm aware of some people that have traveled north. I think we're also excited to, play for our state and with our state. So I've noticed a bit of travel north. Yeah, probably more so than south. But there's also some, I don't want to say catching up even, but growth to be had to give people the tools, like myself, like finally recording something that will allow me and give me the confidence to travel out of our state to play my music.
And you have a reason for it. There's a product, and you'll be able to showcase it and have that as your reason for doing what you're doing. That makes sense. There's a festival in Juneau. It's been twice now.
It's happened once. We're working on round 2.
Oh my Lord! I already felt like the round 2 had been, but the first ever so far, Áak'w Rock. Festival that you got involved with as soon as you came here, I think.
So through doing From Juneau with Love, I got to work with the Jack a bit, and that's how I met Kachung, Stephen Blanchette. And they saw what I did with spreadsheets, with assistance from others too, And so Kachung has created this festival called Áak'w Rock. It's an Indigenous music festival. And it started as a partnership with the Jack and Tlingit and Haida, the tribe here in Juneau. And for the first go around, I was hired as the project manager for the festival. They'd been working on it for 2 years. They got a massive arts grant, which was incredible. And then COVID happened, but they realized, we still need to do the festival because we got all this awesome funding, so let's make it happen. So I got brought on board in July of 2021. The festival happened in November of 2021.
Right.
So I jumped in and helped make that first festival come to fruition. it was totally virtual from an audience perspective. We brought several of the bands to Juneau and we filmed them throughout the day in Centennial Hall, spliced those clips together, inserted host segments that we'd pre-recorded for the weeks leading up to it, and put on these 2 4-hour concerts 2 nights in a row that we aired virtually. And people could follow along live. And it went super well. And
it certainly did.
And it was awesome and important and so stinking cool. And Juneau has never had that many professional working artists perform on the same stage.
And you actually got the whole festival vibe because you were doing it. You weren't just asking people to send clips, which is, you know, kind of like the other things you've been doing and I did during COVID. We didn't even want to risk people being in the same room. And I think that was a great thing that you took that risk because it showed you, you managed to do the arranging part for real. And then the audiences were already okay with watching it and were just happy that they could get more of a live vibe on their screens. Right?
And so because it was virtual, people all over the world could watch it.
Absolutely. And now they can come to Juneau, right?
Exactly.
So we can't wait for that version 2 or the 2.0 or whatever it will be to happen. Are you still involved with that then?
Yeah, the team has gotten bigger, thank goodness. And Clinket and Haida is taking a larger role this year. So now I am the production manager of the festival. It's happening next September, 21st to the 23rd. And we are really hoping that people will travel to Juneau and that it will become a destination event. It's happening every other year. And it should feature up close to 24 Indigenous acts. It'll be across 3 venues. We've got 1,000 tickets for sale. It's going to be massive.
Is it going to be pay what you can still, like you had last time?
It will not be pay what you can this time.
I thought that was interesting.
It worked.
It worked cool. To have pay what you can. But in the long terms, you've already talked about ticket sales. You need to educate your audiences to know that you cannot expect us to do this for you forever if you don't do some commitment.
And we've got 9 months to educate people as to why we need to charge what we need to charge because people deserve to be paid well for their art.
And I totally see, and I think that's a big portion of of the discussion about that part in Alaska, the Alaska art world, if you like. And I think partly it comes from also the different cultures that we have here that we work with. And the people who've lived here longest, the Indigenous people, may think of and actually a lot of the immigrant cultures too have art and culture inbuilt in their practice or their day-to-day life, and it's just seen as a cultural activity, not an economic activity. So it's celebrating our culture. Why should we force people to pay to celebrate the culture? I think that aspect of it is great and it should be there, and at the same time, not because we're living in capitalistic societies, but because there's a reality that things cost. And so somewhere someone is going to have to pay for everything. And it's a very interesting discussion to have once we bring different entities and different cultures together to do something, that we have different ways of thinking of what it takes to make this happen.
And artists are taught, or at least I know I feel like, oh, it is such a privilege for me to get to make art. Therefore, when it comes down to someone has to pay for it, it means artists are paying with their time.
That's our equity, our ideas and our time. I've heard someone, I'm not going to name with names, say, oh, the problem with artists is that they just don't have any money. And it's like, well, that person was someone who could give us money. And so it's like, well, the problem with you then might be that you're not playing the guitar. So that goes both ways.
And we pay for all kinds of services, and art is a service that is provided.
Absolutely, And I think we're not hitting the wall anymore with that argument. I think we're definitely getting somewhere. I remember what I was going to talk to you about a little bit with your incredibly interesting background doing that work in Skagway and inspiring people like Annie Bartholomew to do her amazing upcoming album.
So good.
And one of the topics here then is music as the driver for tourism. You already mentioned it. We hope that Juneau will be a destination with this festival. And, of course, other things. And we're not talking about, I have nothing against in general, or do I, cruise ship tourists, but we're talking about people coming to a place to be music tourists. Independent travelers, music fans who don't accidentally discover discussions on sex workers in a brothel. I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
people remember what we talked about earlier. This is not taken out of thin air, I'm tying it together. But they're coming because there's this awesome festival with these awesome artists. So have you had much... so do you work with the tourism agencies here? I know you must have done it in Skagway with your previous job.
I'm excited to have more conversation with Travel Juneau, the local tourism. I don't want to call them a business, but they take care of business. And they keep track of how many hotel rooms are being booked, et cetera. Like their focus is independent travelers.
It's another spreadsheet, right? They
several
know who the
spreadsheets.
audiences could be, and they probably see a gap, right? There's a niche there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have a reason to spend time focusing on what that cannon should look like, because there is so much potential, which is funny because Alaska already has this massive pull, right? For just being Alaska. You
Just
step
the
outside,
name,
you
for
look
sure.
up, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
just-
plenty. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And so to tack on a music component, it would be so cool.
Absolutely. So I just want to thank you so much for talking to us and for having us in your wonderful Crystal Saloon.
Yeah, my
Good luck
pleasure.
with it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Lisa from the Amplify Alaska team. We have a fundraising event coming up on May 20th, 2023 in Juneau, Alaska at the Crystal Saloon. And many of the artists that are interviewed this season are going to be showcased at the event. So check out more details at amplifyalaska.org, and thanks for listening.